We have seen a lot of X-teams and a lot of X-Men rosters over the years, as well as many different versions of even mutant villain teams pop up. If you include all the alternate Earths and universes besides, it can feel overwhelming to keep track of, and it definitely has become that. I'm sure the Marvel lore master, were they here, would agree with us. X-Men became so successful that they spawned so many different mutant teams, and today we're here to look back on some of the ones you maybe have yet to learn of or even just forgot about, as we count down the top 10 X-Men teams you've never heard of. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's get into it and let's get counting. Number 10, Deadly Genesis. We can talk about different X-Men and mutant teams here, but I'd also like to touch on some of the rosters as well that you may have forgotten about. This one might be due to selective memory loss, or it could just be because you haven't read the story yet. We are talking here about the X-Men Deadly Genesis limited series, which revealed the next team sent into Krakoa after the X-Men team we know went missing. This team wasn't necessarily a bad one at all. In fact, all of these mutants are kinda super powerful, but they were all basically introduced in this short series, which didn't really help to make us care as much about them as we could have. All in all, this story just had a very early 2000s feel to it. Not that that's a bad thing. The Deadly Genesis X-Men team were a group of kids that Moira McTaggart was trying to help out. She didn't even really see them as students, and then Charles recruited them and turned them into X-Men. The team consisted of Sway, Petra, Vulcan, and Darwin, who have all recently reappeared in the Dawn of X line, in case you were wondering where they made their first appearance. Number 9, XAVIERS Security Enforcers. One that we might forget about every now and then is the mutant team that Bishop originally belonged to from the alternate dystopian future that he hails from. I believe this Earth is 1191, but I could be mistaken on that. Didn't even write down my Earth number. Bothers me. This mutant team is known as the XSE, which stands for XAVIERS Security Enforcers. If you know Bishop well and you're a big fan, you likely know this team well, but for those who are new to the character, you might not know about this group of enforcers. The point of the team that Bishop was part of was to preserve the long-dead Professor Charles Xavier's dream, where mutants and humans could exist in harmony, living peacefully together. Bishop has even been known to wield specific future equipment, which he got from XSE, although we haven't seen them in a while. All members of the team wear their mutant tattoo brands like a badge of honor, and the members have included Randall, Malcolm, and Bishop's sister Shard, among others over the years. Before we hop into our number 8 spot, I just want to thank all of you for being here and give you a quick reminder to click that like if you are enjoying this video. It really does help us out. Number 8, Nasty Boys. You might remember the original villainous Marauders team, but do you remember Mr. Sinister's Nasty Boys? Don't worry if you have, because I will never let you forget. Well, both the Marauders and Nasty Boys teams are villainous teams. I couldn't have an obscure mutant team list and not seize the opportunity to remind you all of the Nasty Boys, so here we are. I also just love this name for the team. I personally always read Mr. Sinister with like the most outlandish, flamboyant, yet manipulative pseudo-English accent, so for me it's very fitting that he decided to name his team this. Nasty Boys, so perfect. It fits perfectly with the voice that I have for him in my mind. The Nasty Boys were the team that came after the Marauders. Instead of Gambit being involved in the team, Multiple Man was the generally heroic mutant who got involved. Originally, the team saw Ruckus as leader, with Slab, Gorgeous George, Ramrod, and Hairbag making up the roster. Gorgeous George even resurfaced in Dawn of X more recently. Yay! I might be the only one, but I'm still kinda hoping that the Nasty Boys as well will make a return. Bring them back. Bring them back. Number 7, OUTBACK. When it comes to X-Men rosters as teams, one of the best but shortest running roster is the OUTBACK team. This era for the X-Men team lasted less than 25 issues, but was still so good that people still talk about it today. Now, if you missed this one and you've never heard of it, it's one that you actually probably should read. Not one of my silly points, more one of my serious and beloved forgotten teams on this list. The team started off in issue 229 of Uncanny X-Men, with Storm, Wolverine, Rogue, Colossus, Dazzler, Longshot, Havoc, and Psylocke on it. We'd also see Jubilee introduced during this roster's time together. The OUTBACK team is noted as being one of the best rosters for the X-Men when it comes to having a group who truly feel like outsiders. Also, you get to enjoy the Inferno story in this run, which is bizarre and magical, so you're welcome for that. Number 6, X-Corps. No, I'm not talking about the X Corporation, which has yet to come out but is still coming our way. thank goodness. I thought that book was going to be firmly cancelled, but fortunately it has been revived. I'm so ready for X Corporation, let's go. When we talk about X-Corp, we are talking about Banshee's team. He formed this team after Generation X disbanded, and most of the team were composed of that era of mutants. This team was made up of former villains turned heroes and was created to act as a police force basically for the mutant community. Joining Banshee were the Blob, Avalanche, Fever Pitch, Jubilee, Husk, and M, aka Monet. The X-Men team actually did not approve of this team's creation and actually attempted to get Banshee to disband it. In the end, Mystique infiltrated the team and liberated its members, especially the villains, who were being manipulated into behaving heroically by Mastermind under Banshee's orders. Number 5. X-TREME X-Men. This X-Men roster marked the return of Chris Claremont to the X-Men in a full-time capacity. X-TREME X-Men Volume 1 is a series that started in 2001 and ran till 2004. It was a team that featured my girl Rogue as the leader, woohoo, which you know I'm all about. The original X-TREME X-Men roster also featured Beast, Psylocke, Bishop, Storm, Sage, and Thunderbird on the team. Lifeguard, Gambit, and Slipstream were also added to the mix throughout. This team was originally brought together to find Destiny's premonition-filled diaries, but of course along the way was distracted by many other imminent threats. As you do when you're on an X team. Number 4. Generation Hope. This one is from the 2010 series Generation Hope and was under Cyclops' banner ultimately following the events of Regenesis. Though the team itself was led by mutant messiah Hope Summers, and its roster consisted of No Girl, Pixie, Primal, Sebastian Shaw, Transonic, Velocidad, and Zero at that time. Though originally Hope's team started pre-Regenesis as just being 5 mutants including Hope herself, with Velocidad, Oya, Primal, and Transonic on the team. The team was a search and rescue group who were brought together as they were acknowledged as being 4 of the 5 lights on Cerebra. Hope basically triggered the rebirth of the mutant gene, activating these mutants. The 5th light was what they sought and kind of why they came together, heading to Tokyo, Japan. Zero was the mutant they sought, who would eventually join the team, although originally would be antagonist. Number 3. X-People. You probably forgot about this team just because their name is, well, super forgettable, but they are actually from a very memorable alternate universe, the MC2, or also known as Alternate Earth 982. This Earth is the home of the beloved Mayday Parker, aka Spider-Girl, now known as Spider-Woman. But you know what's not so memorable from that universe? Their version of the X-Men. I mean, I get that X-People is meant to be gender neutral, more inclusive, but is that really the best name they could come up with? There has to be something that isn't X-Men that is better than that. I mean, I know there is because we have dozens of other X teams with the letter X in them that are way more catchy than X-People. Because of the Earth it is set in, X-People is a team of originally younger mutants who are now older and taking on the role of leaders, mentors, and teachers. Actually, here Jubilee is the team leader, with her core team roster including Simeon, Angry Eagle, Torque, and Spanner. Number 2. Factor 3. Factor 3? That sounds like some kind of toothpaste. This is another villainous team composed of mutants but led by an alien known as Mutant Master. You might not remember it because it was only around for a few issues and also first appeared way early on in X-Men issue 28 back in 1967. This team popped up a few times and would often force mutants into doing their bidding, often mind-controlling Banshee to attempt to kidnap or help kidnap Professor X. What a wacky time it was. Fortunately, in issue 39, Factor 3 was defeated for good and hasn't bothered the X-Men since. So we haven't seen them for a really long time. Number 1. Lightning Force. This X-Men team comes to us admittedly from an alternate reality, which might be why you've never heard of it before. But once you learn about them, you'll likely wish they had remained forgotten. Lightning Force is an X-Men team that we come across in the Exiles, who themselves belong to Earth 597. They are basically the alternate Excalibur team from their reality, a reality where the Axis won World War II. Think you know where we're going with this. Their roster is almost as surprising as the whole idea for this team. We have Herr Xavier, who helped to create the team through experimenting on them. Yikes. And leading the team we have Hauptmann England, aka Captain Britain, with Magon, aka Gloriana, Shadowcat, and Nightcrawler. Also, if you were wondering, yes, Kitty Pryde is still Jewish in this reality, which yeah, makes her character's history here pretty dark. Seriously, just so many teams. There is so much history when it comes to mutant kind, even if we are just only looking at the X-Men. It is impressive. What are some teams that you feel are some of the most forgotten? Which teams have you learned about recently that you also cannot believe exist? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, saying thanks for watching and reminding you to stay nerdy, YouTube. Well, you might know the X-Men. Do you know that some of them have kids and even are fighting along some of their kids?
Whether it be the son of Mystique and Wolverine, classic heroes like Rogue, or one of the most powerful mutants in the Marvel Universe, even some of the most powerful heroes feel that biological urge and they must answer it.
The urge to breed! Today we're here to talk about the offspring that result from that as we count down the top 10 children of the X-Men.
I'm your host, Jay Durana.
And I am your host, Amanda McKnight.
Let's get into this video.
Let's do it.
Coming in at number 10, we have Rays. I love when we start getting alternate universe stuff because that's when things really get crazy. You can mix and match and get all sorts of super combinations that you want. And in this case, we have Wolverine and Mystique getting busy and making a baby that has both their powers. Rays is the combination of two heroes to make one of the best spies of all time. Because the thing about Mystique is you can break into almost anywhere because of your ability to shapeshift. But you're at high risk of getting killed because you don't have any sort of protection outside of your hand-to-hand combat and skills with weapons. But then you mix in Wolverine's healing factor and some razor sharp claws, and you have a soldier who can sneak into any place and take out the competition like no one else on the squad. While Rays might not be the most powerful mutant of all time, you can't deny the utility and subtlety that someone like Rays could bring to the table. I don't know if Rays is a fitting enough name for someone who can sneak around and kill someone with claws. They should be called Badger, or Sneaky Badger, or Mongoose.
Number 9. KYMERA. KYMERA is the daughter of Storm from the alternate Earth of 13729. The same reality that Rays hails from, actually, weirdly enough. The identity of KYMERA's father has never been confirmed, but many believe that she's the daughter of Storm's frequent love interest, Black Panther, which would be pretty cool, and I think is what we all want to happen here. We don't normally get to see what these two's future children would look or be like, so yeah. KYMERA is a mutant like her mother and first appeared in Wolverine in the X-Men issue 36. She was created by Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness, and she possesses telepathic powers which allow her to communicate with and influence animals. She's also an expert tracker, which implies to me that she's either the daughter of Black Panther or possibly also of Wolverine. A reality where Wolverine is kids with both Mystique and Storm, though, seems really intense, so I'll just leave that in your mind.
And before we get into our next point, just give this video a big thumbs up because that really helps us out, guys. Coming in at number 8, we have Megan Frost. I don't know what it is with Scott Summers, but it seems that he has a thing for telepaths, or they have a thing for him. I'm not sure which way the pendulum swings, but either way, he has a few kids via telepaths. This time, it would be him and Emma Frost who would hook up and make Megan Frost. Megan comes to the table with a host of powers from her parents. She's got her dad's psionic blast, and she's got her mama's telepathy. She also has a host of telekinetic powers, so it would seem that Scott Summers might have some hidden telekinetic powers in his genes because his other kids do as well. Now on the downside, Megan didn't get her mom's diamond skin, which is one of her most legendary powers, but she makes up for this by training hard in hand-to-hand combat to the level where she could knock out anyone who might be able to sneak by her telepathy and get within punching range.
Number 7. Rogue. Rogue is the daughter of Mystique and Destiny. Well, adopted daughter anyways, but they were both definitely more influential in the raising of Rogue than our own biological parents, so I consider them more of her parents than her actual parents, I guess? They are her actual parents. That's it. Before she ran away as a teenager, Rogue was raised in a hippie commune by her father and aunt after her mother disappeared. After she'd left, she ended up being approached by Mystique, who was told to seek her out by her long-term partner, Destiny. Rogue joined the two of them and they raised her like their own daughter. While Rogue is super awesome and powerful, Mystique is rarely associated with the X-Men, which is why Rogue ranks so low on this list. Basically, she's paying for her mother's generally more villainous tendencies, which has also factored into her story in the comics many times before. Poor Rogue, and also honestly, poor Mystique.
Coming in at number 6, we have X-23, the most famous child of Wolverine, and certainly one of the most deadly. X-23, also known as Laura Kinney, is the clone of Wolverine, but also kind of his daughter. It's a little bit of a weird backstory. She's a clone, but she wasn't grown in a tube like most clones are, or I think they are. I don't know a lot about science. But she was actually grown in someone's womb, so that pretty much makes her a baby like any other baby, but she was for sure a clone. Are you confused? It's comic books, that's just how things are sometimes. But she's got all of her daddy's powers, and she can cut you down faster than a Vitamix blender. She can show that she can be a prolific Wolverine replacement, since after Logan dies, she steps into the role as the new Wolverine and starts taking dudes out just like her old pa. And something very interesting about this character is that the first time she showed up, it wasn't actually in comics, but it was in the TV show called X-Men Evolution, which was about a bunch of teenage versions of the X-Men all going to school together and having school problems, you know, and school stuff.
Number 5, Shogo. Shogo Lee is the son of Jubilee, and while he might just be a baby currently, he's still been a powerhouse recently in the comics. Shogo was adopted by Jubilee after he was orphaned by a meteor strike. Sounds random, but it actually tied into stuff. Anyways, for Jubilee, adopting Shogo was very important and a big part of her growing up as a character. As far as we know, Shogo is not immune like his mom, but he did have some pretty cool powers while in Otherworld. His imagination combined with fairy magic granted him the ability to turn into a dragon while in Otherworld. A mother freaking dragon. A dragon. So yeah, he is basically a dragon whenever he's there in Otherworld, which makes him pretty powerful while on those planes. Saturnine herself also took a shining to him, and he was instrumental during the fight at the end of the Ten of Swords event.
Coming in number 4, we have Cable. I mean, how do we make a list of children of X-Men and even think about leaving out Cable? Cable is the son of Scott Summers, better known as Cyclops, and the very powerful telepath Madeline Pryor, who's the evil clone of Jean Grey. See, Scott thought he was gonna have a baby with Jean, but it was a trick! There's so many tricky babies in comic books. Well, they had a baby, and that baby became insanely powerful, one of the most powerful telepaths, and then he becomes a skilled soldier, and then he goes back in time to work with his dad and sometimes against his dad. It's a very complicated situation. He also gets some sort of technovirus put into him, and it makes it harder for him to use his powers because he has to constantly use his mind to fight off the technovirus. And he gets cloned, and his clone is evil and has no virus. And he's buddies with Deadpool. The two of them work together in a straight man stooge double act kind of thing.
Number 3, Polaris. While some might think of Magneto as more of a villain and therefore not one of the X-Men, he has been a member on and off throughout his history and has even led teams both within and without the main continuity. His daughter Lorna Dane and himself have one of the most strained relationships of all of the X-Men and their kids. This has been highlighted recently and ultimately comes down to the fact that initially Magneto manipulated Lorna, keeping the truth of him being her father from her. Not a great start. Even when that fact was revealed to her, he still hadn't been the best dad, and Polaris has even called him out on this before in the comics, reminding him that he doesn't even really know her. Yeesh. Still, the two teaming up together are able to perform some pretty powerful feats as both share the power of magnetism.
Coming in number 2, we have Legion. If you're Professor X's kid, you know you're going to be extremely powerful, and you would think you would be raised by the perfect dad and have one of the best fathers around. Well, even though Xavier is good at raising kids that he has no blood connection to, he isn't that good at making a strong connection with his own son. Part of it is just bad parenting, and the other part is Legion is a lot to deal with even for the most powerful, responsible, and well-adjusted parents on the planet. See, Legion isn't just one mutant. He has split personalities that live in his body, and each one of them has their own mutation. So Legion can switch from personality to personality and change his power. That's a pretty serious combination of abilities that probably work really well together. Well, here's the thing. You don't need his powers to work together because several of these mutants are Omega level. And when I say several, I mean around 200. And even the ones that aren't strong enough to wipe out existence itself, which Legion has done more than once, they are still strong enough to create an amazing storm of chaos. And there are new powers and personalities being created all the time inside Legion's body. Rogue was inside Legion's mind once, and she said there were over 1,000 personalities with new ones being born.
Number 1, Daken. Daken is definitely one of the most iconic X-Men kids, I believe. Although, obviously X-23 is also up there. I'm sorry that I just dissed her by putting Daken above her. And he's a really well-known X-Men kid, despite the fact fact that he has major daddy issues. Daken is now all grown up and is currently part of the X-Factor team, but he has been all over the place when it comes to his alignment since he was first introduced in the comics in Wolverine Origins issue number 10. We've seen him as both a villain working against his father, even trying to kill him. We've seen him take on the Punisher alongside the Dark Avengers, acting as Osborn's assassin. We've seen him tangle even with the likes of Deadpool and be manipulated by the lovable and very unstable Mirk, but he's also acted heroically from time to time, and now seems to be more on the side of those things with X-Factor. Though then again, Krakoa is a place for all mutants, so it's not like him being a bad boy would ever mean that he'd get kicked off the team. And when it comes to mutant bad boys, Daken is definitely one of the baddest. I need to do a mutant bad boy list so I can put him at the top. Who are some of your favorite children of mutants? One we didn't mention here that I personally think is super cool, who does have sort of diamond form, is Ruby Summers, who's the daughter of Cyclops and Emma Frost from an alternate future. I love her. She is a Ruby form, and I also love that alternate future Scott too. He's part cyborg and he wears a super sweet cape.
That
I
is,
love capes.
yeah, that is very cool.
It's pretty cool.
I'm a big fan of Hope Summers, just the mimicking powers. I like because she can mimic, but then she does it better than you.
Yeah, she does it better than you.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, but also I'm the top.
But I'm the top.
But then she's also like Rogue's like, oh, I'll steal people's powers and you don't even have them. And she's like, oh, like I can just use yours and you still get it.
I still, exactly.
So
and
fine.
it's so.
And I'll still beat you.
I'll still beat you. It's so rude. It's like literally like you're like, I'm Flame Dude, and then she just dunks on you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm Flame Dude better and cooler.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I'm not so hot.
Not so hot. Not so hot. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I've been your host, Jade Reyna.
And I'm Amanda McKnight. And till next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.
Bye.
Bye. When it comes to mutants, many of the core X-Men are the ones that often get the most love and most respect when it comes to that mutant fandom. That is usually because they are just the mutants we know the best, and they have been around and in the spotlight for a long time. We're talking about Jean Grey, Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine, Rogue, Iceman, Beast, and Professor X. And that's just when it comes to the heroes. The crazy thing is, not all of these X-Men are even part of that original roster. And another shocking fact, not all these mutants are even the most powerful. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're going to be flipping back through mutant history and taking a look at some of the epic mutants you may not have met yet during your comic book or cinematic adventures, as we count down the top 10 most powerful mutants you've never heard of. If you enjoy content covering some of the lesser known characters of comics, by the way, check out one of my latest videos where I talk about some of the lesser known Wolverine villains. It's got 2 parts too. It'll be somewhere over here. And as always, be sure to stick around to the end of this list where I will have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, now let's get counting. Number 10, Prodigy. I feel like a lot of people maybe forgot about Prodigy, as he's been MIA for some time in the comics and was depowered during the events of M-Day. But with the magic of Krakoa and Dawn of X, he was able to return to us, being resurrected and also regaining his powers. 1, Prodigy happens to be a super genius, but this is also because he's a telepath with the ability to basically mimic anyone's skill set and share their knowledge while nearby. This has also been shown in the past to extend to fighting precognition, where he can basically use his abilities to read a person and predict their next move of attack in a battle, which is pretty sweet. He often also builds his own advanced tech, and even when depowered is known to possess a great level of intellect, making him a challenging adversary whether or not he has his mutant abilities. Even as a depowered mutant, you might not want to mess with him. Number 9, Lady Mastermind. Lady Mastermind, aka Reagan Wingard, recently popped back up in the giant-sized Nightcrawler comics and was welcomed into the mutant nation of Krakoa. Some, however, may not know or appreciate her mutant history and background. Just who is Lady Mastermind? Well, she's the daughter of Jason Wingard, aka the original villain known as Mastermind. Her powers take after her father's, allowing her to create realistic illusions projected into her target's minds. While she also has an even lesser known suspected half-sister, Reagan's powers are often depicted as being the more powerful between the two, with it even being said that her abilities are even more stronger than her father's. Additionally, she is also fairly skilled in hand-to-hand combat, a skill set her father actually very much lacked. He was hilarious in a fight. He's like a rag doll. Sorry Mastermind. Number 8, Gentle. Gentle is a mutant with the abilities of super strength. I know, very hilarious considering his name. He can grant himself immediate muscle mass that basically allows him to change size and increase his strength when needed. It is yet unknown just how strong Gentle can make himself, and he is also known for being someone who could potentially even take on the Hulk, although he is more of a pacifist, hence his name. Gentle's real name is Nesno Abidemi. I hope I'm saying that right. Nesno Abidemi. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. It's a hard one to say. He was raised in Wakanda, but always felt like an outsider because his father was Russian. When his mutant abilities surfaced, it was actually Aurora Monroe Storm, who was queen at the time in Wakanda, who encouraged him to be sent to the Xavier Institute so he could learn how to better control his powers. His vibranium tattoos are also meant to help him to control those powers. Also, vibranium tattoos are super cool, but I think they're also super painful to get, so maybe don't get them. You can't, because it's not a real substance, but still. Number 7. Egg. Fabio Medina might not seem like a powerful mutant based on his ability, but since his rise to the supremely important mutant group known as the Five on Krakoa, he can be considered one of the most important and powerful mutants around. When he combines his powers with that of the Five, he has control over life and death. Originally, the bouncy gold balls that he shot forth from his chest were believed to be nothing special, but it was later revealed that these balls were actually infertile eggs, which could be used in the process of resurrecting new mutants. Number 6. Tempus. Aoife Bell is another member of the Five. She has actually appeared in less issues than Egg, if you can believe it, despite the fact that she has a pretty neat power set, and it's been neat since the beginning, which allows her to time travel. Tempus, as she used to be known, was able to control the passage of time in a specific pocket of space. She could also slow time in a current space that she also inhabited, either slowing time around her or creating time bubbles to manipulate time in that bubble, where she could speed it up or slow it down. The only challenge for her has been losing control of her powers, which can cause them to behave unpredictably. Still, controlling time is a pretty impressive and powerful ability to have. Number 5. Empath. Manuel de la Rocha made his first appearance in the original New Mutant series, where he was part of Emma Frost's team known as the Hellions. He's recently reappeared in the newest Hellion series from 2020 and proves just how powerful, but also how sadistic he can be. Empath's power is, you guessed it, empathy, and he can use this power to not only sense others' emotions, but also to control them, in effect manipulating others into doing whatever he wishes them to do. His influence can be subtle, such that someone might not even realize they're being manipulated by him, or it can be more forceful, turning his victims into complete husks of their former selves and bending them fully to his will. Number 4. Vulcan. Vulcan is one of the most powerful mutants around, being an Omega level mutant, skilled in energy manipulation and absorption. Yet he is somehow the lesser known of all the Summers, despite his insane power levels. He has also demonstrated the ability to absorb his opponent's powers as well, and use them for himself on the rare occasion. Vulcan is the youngest Summers brother, also known as Gabe Summers, and we only learned of his existence in 2006 when he first appeared in the comic X-Men Deadly Genesis issue number 1, and yet he is considered the most powerful of these three. Number 3. Orphan Maker and Nanny. Orphan Maker still remains a relatively mysterious character, though is also one who still proves to be a force to be reckoned with in combat. Orphan Maker is also known as Peter and was part of a plot of Mr. Sinister's originally. However, when Mr. Sinister decided that Peter could not be controlled, he decided to eliminate him. Nanny, an insane cyborg, however, saved him, believing it was her responsibility to look after orphan mutant children and protect them. Although I will say she's got a weird way of going about it. While insane, Nanny was also once a scientist and remains quite intelligent. She actually outfitted Orphan Maker with weapons and a powerful suit to help her in her task. While it's still unclear as to what Orphan Maker's true mutant powers are, and while he seems to still have the mind of a child, probably due to Nanny's manipulation, his suit and weapons make him a formidable foe in combat, and he often uses pixie dust in battle to help Nanny influence and control the minds of their opponents, as she herself is a telepath, but a weak one, so she needs a little bit of help. Needs a little bit of pixie dust. Even during a fight with Cyclops, Scott's optic blasts were unable to harm Orphan Maker while he was in his armor, with Scott's blast simply reflecting off the armor, causing more harm than help, really. Number 2. Trinary. Considering the modern age we live in, Trinary is a pretty powerful mutant. Her abilities allow her to control all tech that is within her line of sight. She has used these powers to move massive sums of money digitally and to manipulate and control Sentinel tech. Currently on Krakoa, Trinary is one of the few technopathic mutants trusted with the important project known as Sleeping Giant, wherein mutants monitor for upcoming advancement in Sentinel technology, such as Nimrods or the creation of a mother mold, so that they can ideally put a stop to its development. Project Sleeping Giant were instrumental in helping the X-Men to destroy a mother mold that Orchis was creating before it went online. Number 1. Bailey Hoskins. Now you might think I'm joking here. If you happen to know the obscure Bailey Hoskins, Hoskins, but I'm really not. Bailey appeared in his own miniseries titled X-Men, Worst X-Man Ever. He was known for being the worst X-Man ever because his ability only allowed him to do one thing, explode. But he didn't have any regeneration powers, so he basically was a mutant who could never use his powers, otherwise he'd kill himself. It's kind of a one-hit wonder. So how is that powerful? Well, it's also implied in the series that when he does choose to sacrifice himself and blow up the villain of the story, that he makes it possible for Earth 616 to come into existence. So without him, we wouldn't have the main Marvel continuity that we know and love today, potentially. If saving the entire continuity from becoming a dystopian future isn't powerful, then I don't know what is. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who are some of your favorite mutants? Are there any other powerful but more unknown mutants that you feel we may have missed? Who are some of your favorite mutants that you consider less well known? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Dark Alternate Versions of Deadpool. Trex Advent asks, do you think we will see Deadpool mentioning or doing cosplay of these alternate versions of himself? Now, seeing him cosplay as his own alternate versions would be pretty cool and meta, but I also think it would actually be super cool if we got a Deadpool 3 movie and evil Deadpool made his way into it somehow. Or Headpool. Jhawk2247 writes, imagine Deadpool being combined with Carnage. Wow, that sounds like too much crazy for me. AJ Kimball writes, I swear you said Deadpool 11,000 times in just this video. Well, takes me approximately 1 second to say the word Deadpool, so if that was the case, that video would just be over 3 hours, because 11,000 seconds is about 3 hours. I must have said Deadpool 11,000 times really fast if I did that, because we managed to get that video done in 10 minutes. So just me saying Deadpool on repeat, but like fast forwarded. Wow. I promise that's not what that video is, but also, if it was, that would be crazy. I would actually watch it. Jason Beard writes, I want the third Deadpool movie to be Deadpool versus all of his formerly disembodied parts that regrew new bodies. An army of Deadpools! Now, do you want them to all be similar to like Deadpool when he had to face all those brainwashed Super Skrull Deadpools that he built? Or do you want it to be more something like Deadpool kills Deadpool, where each alternate Deadpool is a unique version? That's the question. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your thoughts and your feels shouted out in a future video. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube. Precognition. Is that a word? That's a word. Let me put it in there. I feel like, I don't know if that makes sense. You gonna Google it? Precognition. I'm pretty sure it is. I did use it right, I think. I don't know, I'm questioning myself. Lady Mastermind, aka Reagan. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Why did it do that?
I guess it's cut off sometimes.
All my comments. Oh, there it is. Boom. Strange.
It does that sometimes.
Why? Because it doesn't like us?
I don't know. It happens to Jared a lot. Like every other video does.
Oh my goodness, poor Jared.
Dr. Henry Hank McCoy, aka Beast, is one of the OG X-Men. Even if you aren't a fan of the mutant superhero team, you'd likely recognize Beast regardless. Yeah, he's the big blue furry dude, but he's also so much more than that. He's a scientific genius with a heart of gold, created by legends Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, and is the perfect summation of brawn and brains. So today we are taking a closer look at the character with our list of the top 10 superpowers you didn't know Beast had. Some of these are powers you might already know that he has, but the extent of those powers is something worth discussing. Others are ones that make perfect sense considering his animalistic side. So with that in mind, let's get to our list. Starting us off in at number 10, Pheromone Manipulation. He ain't called the Beast for nothing, wink wink. Oh god, I'm so sorry. Jokes aside, Hank has a nifty ability that allows him to manipulate pheromones in a minor extent. Not of others though. He can secrete pheromones from his own body to attract members of the opposite sex. While this isn't seen a whole lot in the comics, or barely at all to the point where some have actually speculated it to be a widespread misconception, it is actually stated in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe A to Z Volume 1. So maybe Hank just likes to keep this power off the battlefield, if you know what I mean. I will stop sexualizing Beast now. Moving on to number 9, Super Scent. Beast has heightened superhuman senses, which include his sense of smell. Similar to some animals, he can see, hear, and smell distant objects way more clearly than the regular old human can. This means he can identify others based on their scent, making him fantastic at tracking. When Colossus was brought back to life, Beast was able to tell that it was the real Colossus based off of his scent alone. While we're on the subject of senses, even though it has nothing to do with smell, another neat sense-based thing that Beast can do is detect electronic signals through solid walls and floors thanks to how sensitive his hands and feet are, meaning he can pick up on bombs, listening devices, that sort of thing. Pretty cool, ain't it? And at number 8, slowed aging. Similar to a few other members of the X-Men team, Beast ages at a slower rate thanks to his mutation. It's not as drastic as the others, the likes of Colossus or Wolverine though. It's a slight degree of slowed aging due to his regenerative healing factor. His metabolism is pretty impressive and can repair mild to moderate injuries at a superhuman rate. He's been in his prime for years, with an impressive vitality to boot considering he's way past 40 years old these days. Moving on to number 7, his claws and fangs. Okay, so obviously you know that Beast has claws and fangs, duh. But they're much more than just aesthetic choices by his creators Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. There's way more thought into it than that. Hank's claws are 3 inches in length, retractable, and on both of his hands and his feet. They are capable of tearing up materials like stone, wood, metal, and even flesh effortlessly, and allow for him to easily grip surfaces of all sorts, even vertical ones, while climbing, wedging his claws into even the tiniest of cracks. In addition to that, his fangs are cool too. He has elongated canines that are very effective and painful in combat. Moving on to number 6, he's multilingual. Okay, so this should be no surprise. Hank McCoy, aside from being an absolute genius with, might I add, a Nobel Prize and 9 Presidential Medals of Freedom on under his blue belt, can also speak a slew of languages. We've seen him speak Japanese and French in Avengers Volume 1 Issue 206, German in Avengers Volume 1 209, and Russian in Avengers Issue 207. He can also speak Spanish, Latin, Arabic, Latvian, and was being taught by the Black Swan several extinct languages too. It was actually a trade-off, with Black Swan teaching him 3 new languages, and in return, he was teaching her Latin. Always going for that knowledge, Beast. And at number 5, contaminant resistant. Jumping back a little bit here to discuss a series of abilities that actually sprout from Hank's regenerative healing factor, these next few numbers all pertain to useful powers that Beast possesses that we don't really see him flex all the time. The first is that he is resistant to contaminants, which, as you can imagine, definitely helps on the science front. Hank's immune system is highly advanced, which is why he's able to recover from ailments like colds or minor wounds at almost a comically fast rate. This also extends to being immune to things like tranquilizers, foreign chemicals, and the poisons used by characters the likes of Kraven the Hunter, or at least the poisons Kraven used to use in the early days when fighting the X-Men. Up next at 4, he is temperature resistant, specifically cold resistant. Thanks to his healing factor and his layer of blue fur, which by the way, his skin isn't blue, it's just his fur. Beast does particularly well in the cold. He's actually been frozen solid by Iceman in the past and managed to survive, with only shivers to show for it. Iceman has also frozen some of Beast's limbs before too, much to Hank's annoyance. Now this resistance should not be confused with an immunity. He can handle severe temperatures, but can be bested by them if having to endure them for great lengths, or if the temperatures are very, very immense. Up next at 3, telepathic resistance. Lastly on the resistance front, we have telepathic resistance. While one could argue this moderate resistance to telepathic attacks and manipulation is rooted in his healing factor, realistically, Hank's psychic resistance is likely thanks to him being in close proximity with several very powerful psychic mutants, specifically Charles Xavier and Jean Grey. The latter having been on the original roster of X-Men alongside Hank too. And we didn't get to see this power in use until much later though. Beast was able to resist an attack from Cassandra Nova, a high-powered telepath, for a short period of time, although he would eventually cave. She used his own fears against him and reverted him to his more animalistic behavior that occasionally pops out. Speaking of though, that brings us to our next number. In at 2, he has a secondary mutation. Beast has a secondary mutation that changed him drastically. In New X-Men Volume 1 Issue 114, a secondary mutation kicks in for Hank that transforms his initial ape-inspired physique into one that is more so cat-like. He ended up requiring help from his past self in order to stabilize his present-day self. So this secondary mutation has caused some of his powers to fluctuate over the years and have given him different vulnerabilities, specifically one that is referred to as his animal instinct weakness. What this means is that because of his secondary mutation, Hank finds himself dealing with his increasing animal instincts that arise from continuation of this mutation. Villains the likes of Cassandra Nova have taken advantage of this, making him act like an animal while under her control. Beast has also developed unsavory traits like a carnivorous taste for flesh, something that he is rather conflicted over. But it is not the end of the world for the Big Blue Mutant. As seen in Astonishing X-Men Volume 3 Issue 18, there are ways of bringing Beast back to his civilized senses if he falls privy to these animal instincts, in which he loses his higher mental functions. Synthetic fiber laced with pheromones will do the trick, and so will aerosol smart drugs, and specific light sequences. Oh, and best of all, so can a ball of yarn. Oh. And last but not least, in at number 1, genetic atavism. While it has yet to be confirmed, Hank has speculated that his mutation is actually the result of something called genetic atavism, or rather, genetic traits that resurface in a species after spending generations and generations of being dormant. The reasoning behind this is why he has such a genius-level intellect and large brain, but an ape-like physique. To further support this theory, he also possesses something called neotenos, which are traits found in a descendant that resembles those of an ancestor, like apes. It's worth noting though that the initial inspiration for why Beast ended up with his furry aesthetic is due to Roy Thomas and Stan Lee wanting to make the character more visibly striking, and to capitalize on the success that Marvel was having with their Werewolf by Night comic series. Alright, there we have it friends. What are your thoughts and feels about Beast? Do you like him? Do you hate him? Are you mediocre about him? Let us know in those comments below. If you guys dug this video, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button, share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd for more videos just like this. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one.